one of the things sellers will ask me is, does staging really work? And is it really worth it to pay someone to come and stage my property? Now, the thing I always tell people is that's always going to depend on your specific situation, what the parameters are, that kind of thing. Do you still plan on being in the home when we put it on the market? But 110% when a home is going to be vacant and I feel that staging is going to help benefit the sale, I will advise doing staging. And now, there are some unique situations. For instance, I had one recently that was in an estate, if you will. There was a lot going on with the home, and the seller and I collectively felt that it was not going to be in the best interest to spend X amount of dollars up front staging, because it wasn't going to change the mindset of a buyer when they walked in to bring more value to the table. So I'm never going to advise a seller do something that doesn't bring some kind of return that is worth the money and time, sweat equity, that kind of thing. So always keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind that one of the easiest things you can do to change the dynamic of your home is painting and light fixtures. And you can get inexpensive light fixtures. Now, don't get the boob lights. Those scream cheap. I threw the cheapest thing up that I could find, and it screams 1990s. Don't throw the boob lights up. You can still find some very nice flush mount lights that look updated for very inexpensive at Home Depot, Lowe's, what have you. I tend to find them better at Home Depot, just FYI. You can usually get like a multi-pack, and they look great. But most of the time, if the house is going to be vacant, I recommend staging. And I know, especially during COVID, there were a lot of agents even that argued with me and said that, staging just isn't worth the money. Homes are selling themselves. Homes were selling themselves. However, those that were staged were still selling for even more than the ones that weren't staged during COVID times. And I'm going to show you a property right here. This was one of my listings that we went into it, and I said, hey, I think we should list it at $325. Actually, the seller and I agreed that he wanted to potentially try to sell this off market, if he could, to the right buyer for $325. Even though I felt that was a little high with the way that the property looked, the condition, that kind of thing. I knew it wasn't going to scream to buyers to want to buy it at that price point. I was like, maybe around $3 off market, possibly. And then, I just said, staging this house is going to be the way that you get the most bang for your buck, and you're going to get people, fighting over it, all that kind of thing. And this was a parent's home. They had lived there for decades. So while the kitchen had been updated, the kitchen and the bathrooms had been updated, beautiful countertops, that kind of thing, the rest of the house needed quite a bit of zhuzhing and updating, and what have you. And there was one room in particular that it was really dark paneling. And there was hardwood under, I believe, all the carpeting other than in the dining room and the paneled back family room. And so, and the hardwood wasn't in perfect condition. And he said, I'm really afraid to pull up this carpet because I know the hardwood isn't in perfect condition. I said, it doesn't have to be in perfect condition. We just have to show buyers that it's there, because you can tell them all day long in the marketing remarks, but unless they visually see it, buyers can't visualize most of the time what the potential is there. Or they're wondering, what kind of condition are they in? Are we still going to have to do something with the floors? Are we going to have to install new flooring? Are they rotted? Are they this? Are they salvageable? So you pulling up the carpet, even though the hardwood isn't in perfect condition, a lot of times helps take that guesswork and doubt away from the buyer, and they can just fully see what they're dealing with, and that helps them. So, and the other thing is we put area rugs down, what have you, when we're staging, and that just helps enhance, and it hides. I like to say hides, because we're not trying to deviantly hide something from the buyer. In fact, when I have hardwoods that aren't in perfect condition, I put in the agent-only remarks, agents, please advise your buyers hardwood floors do need to be refinished. There are stains under the carpeting, yada, yada, yada. So that no one feels that we are trying to deviantly withhold information and hide it per se. We're just staging it to make it look the best that we can. So a lot of time those area rugs are going to cover a lot of the major stains, and so people, again, are just able to visualize what it can look like once they refinish the hardwood, or if they even feel they need to, kind of thing. So this particular property, seller was like, hey, if I don't have to have everything out within the first week of me, working on things and what have you, I'm going to be on vacation, I'm doing things, I don't want to have to worry about this house. If you can sell it off market, let's do it for $325. And parents' older furniture was still in the home. There was one room that I recommended painting. It was the one with paneling, because the room was so dark and the carpeting was maroon. And I didn't want him to have to replace the carpeting, and I knew once the stager came in, the area rug and the furniture that we put in there would lighten that room up. And so my suggestions, if he was going to put it on the market, paint that back bedroom agreeable gray from Sherwin-Williams. It's a nice grayish, because not everyone is loving gray these days, but agreeable gray is more of this taupey, grayish color that everyone loves. So I was like, I would definitely recommend painting that room, getting all the furniture out, having my stager come in and, put furniture in every single room, all the bedrooms, family room, living room, dining room, zhuzh up the kitchen and the bathrooms with, towels, little trinkety things, that kind of stuff. And he was like, let's see if we can just sell it off market for $325. I take some of my clients through, and they were like, they were very underwhelmed. And then there were a couple other buyers that I took through, a couple other sets of buyers that I showed the property to. And all of them thought they were super interested till they got into it, and they were just like, they were underwhelmed. Again, buyers can't see it. They can't see the potential. Even though I can see it, my stager can see it, what have you. And these are people getting a chance to buy something off market before it hits the market at a really reasonable price. They just couldn't visualize it. And so, I ended up telling my seller after a couple, 3 weeks of, trying to sell it off market, which also at that time, the way the MLS was handling off-market things, that means I can't market it to anyone outside of my office. They can't be buyers that are represented, so that also makes it difficult too. But point being, there were 3 sets of buyers that were super interested and then decided they weren't after they had been through it. And so he's like, all right, let's go ahead and do the thing. Let's stage it. Let's, yada, yada, yada. So we stage it and we list it at $345. It was somewhere in there. Funny story. My buyers that walked through that house before it was staged, that back bedroom was painted, cleaned up, what have you, they live, and they're like, hey, we want to see that property that you just shared on Facebook that's over on such and such address. And I said, guys, you were in that 3 weeks ago. You didn't want it. And they were like, no, we weren't. I said, that's the off-market one. That's mine. I took you through that. You had no interest in it. And they were like, oh my gosh. That's insane. They did a fabulous bang-up job. And I said, you want to know what they did? They painted a bedroom, and we ripped out carpet, and I had it staged. Like, this whole house wasn't remodeled by any means. So it's amazing. And then, remember when no one would pay $325 for it off market? We ended up getting multiple offers that drove it up to, we were under contract at $365. It could have gone higher. I can explain that another day. However, once we went under contract, it was discovered there was some major structural roof things going on. And so the price was renegotiated from there to satisfy the buyer and seller and just move on. But moral of the story, yes, staging makes a difference. A $40,000 difference